welcome to Morgan McKinley's webinar for newly qualified ACAs. You can also join in online on Twitter at Morgan McKinley using the hashtag #CareerAlly. That's hashtag #CareerAlly. Okay, well, thanks for joining. Objective today is twofold. We're going to firstly give you an overview of the types of role available to you following your ACA qualification, and secondly to give you some useful tips and pointers which will certainly help you in your search for that new job. Specifically, we'll give you an overview of the typical options available within professional services, banking and financial services, and commerce and industry. As you can see on the screen, we'll also be giving advice on how to maximize your job search, how to make your CV stand out, how to prepare for your interview. Now, the webinar should last about 25 minutes with a Q&A session at the end. As quite a few people joined in on the call today, so if you do have questions, please do submit them online. If we do run out of time, then we'll ensure we come back to you individually, so don't panic. Okay, moving forward. Firstly, I guess I'll introduce myself more formally. My name's Andrew Kitchen, and I run the internal audit desk here at Morgan McKinley. So first up, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes just talking about the job search itself. After all, I assume that's why you're all here tonight. Okay, so if you want to be taken seriously by employers, you need to take the job search itself seriously to start with. Ultimately, this means investing time in the process from the very first step, i.e. today. So don't just focus on what you might want now. Instead, think about where you want to be in 5 years' time. From there, let's work backwards. What career path will help you get there? Hopefully, some of the content today is going to help. If you still don't know, then the recruiters here at Morgan McKinley can certainly help you, but you will need to interact with us. We won't know what that perfect role looks like unless you're willing to spend some time explaining it to us. Yes, a good CV can help, but it's the consultant that really knows whether you're a good fit for the role, the team, and the company. They're the ones who will actively promote you to that line manager. And without a face-to-face meeting, guys, we simply can't do this effectively. We'll also present your experience in the best possible way, help you prepare for the interviews. We'll provide coaching on body language, voice tone, and so on. Also, have a think about putting your name into Google. Let's see what comes up. I guarantee your potential employers are checking you out as well. So, is your LinkedIn profile up to date? This should almost read as a secondary CV. Also, what images come up? Have you checked your Facebook privacy settings? A candidate of mine actually just got rejected owing to some of their public Facebook photos, which showed them drunk and in various states of undress with their mates. As you progress through the interview process, take on board any feedback that you get from the employer directly, the consultant. All of this will help improve and keep impressing in future stages. Okay, I'd now like to pass you through to my colleague Josh, who's going to talk you through some of the options available within practice.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Some really, really good tips there. My name is Josh Rufus, and I'm the manager of the practice team here at Morgan McKinley. And I would like to discuss with you the options that are available, whether this is within audit or other teams such as transactional services or corporate finance. It is important to point out that accountancy firms will have exposure to a number of different sectors, so if you wish to specialise or keep your options open, both can be accommodated depending upon your preference. The variety of organisations is simply outstanding, ranging from 2 partner practices to Big 4 firms, depending upon what suits you. You'll find that if you stay within practice, the chance of being fast-tracked and having clear promotions laid out is not only commonplace, but extremely interesting and appealing. It is not unheard of for audit seniors to progress through to manager and director level within 5 years, where you will be able to make a significant impact on the business, to not only have a chance to manage teams, but also to be in charge of your own portfolio and to be able to engage at senior level and also influence key decision makers. Also, if you have a passion for travel, then roles within external audit can be very appealing as well. I recently placed a candidate within a top 10 practice firm who within her first 6 months has travelled as far away as South Africa, South America and Asia. You will also find that these posts come with a certain amount of trust and responsibility that you will gain at such an early period in your career, which to some is extremely attractive and a very quick way to get noticed and to rise through the ranks. As you can see, I've listed the types of roles that are open to you within practice if you wish to work within audit, but also exposure to roles within transactional services that are definitely worth considering if you're worth considering a career within the Big Four. Within certain teams, there is the ability to work in other areas of the business, such as corporate finance or treasury. Traditionally, after completing a busy season with the said firm, secondments within these organisations are offered. I've also come across instances where individuals have worked on site for their clients, so perhaps if you would like a taste of what a job within industry is like without leaving practice altogether, then this is well worth considering. Salaries will range dependent on the size of the organisation, as you can see on the left. A lot of firms these days will offer discretionary bonuses and the ability to finish earlier during the months when they do not have deadlines. This is a really great perk, and I know a number of people would take advantage of this to finish early on Fridays when it's not busy season. I've also seen accountancy firms over the past couple of years making great steps to increase work-life balance and flexibility within working hours. It's gone a long way to improving this. I've also listed the sort of background and skill set that firms like the ideal candidate to possess. I think it must also be pointed out that the traditional auditor of 20 years ago, who provides reports that will never be seen again, just be at the annual general meeting or filed in the cabinet somewhere, never to see the light of day, really do not exist anymore. The emphasis tends to be not only being technically astute, but also being an excellent communicator and having the ability to influence. And I believe that this has also made a career within practice extremely attractive and rewarding proposition. Lastly, I thought I'd finish off with a selection of career paths that are available to you if you wish, should you wish to stay within practice, or even if you want to go from practice to industry. Firstly, top 50 practice semi-senior, then leaving to become a top 5 practice audit executive, and then leaving practice altogether to go to an investment bank is a well-trodden path. You might be a regional practice semi-senior outside of London and want to move to inside London, move into a top 20 firm, but then really wish to stay within practice and then move to a Big Four audit firm. Also, I've seen people move from small boutiques to Big Four audit roles and then transferring sideways across to work within corporate finance. And lastly, if you do wish to stay within practice, that there's a route there at the bottom for you. And as talked earlier, this is something that you might find that you rise quicker than in other sectors. I thank you for your time. I'd like to hand you back to Andrew.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, so next up, guys, another tip session, really this time focusing around how we make your CV stand out. Maybe simplifying things a little bit, and I don't want to belittle anyone's experience here, but essentially, at the minute, you're all identical. You're newly qualified ACAs, you've got 3 years training behind you, but so has everyone else. And on paper, there's certainly a risk that you all look the same. So what makes you stand out from the other hundreds of newly qualified ACAs, and what's going to make that employer choose your CV over the other 40 or 50 CVs on their desk? Well, let's start with the basics. Now, it should be obvious, it should be self-explanatory, but I'm always amazed at the number of poorly constructed CVs that I see every single day. Guys, this is the single most important document you'll create. Get this wrong, and you can kiss goodbye all chances of getting that next interview at your dream company. So what's the first impression being created? Is everything in the same font and size? Does it look professional, or does it simply look rushed? Make sure you lay everything out and divide it into sections. So under each job, let's clearly spell out what you've done, what clients you've worked with, what projects you've led, what your achievements are. It's no use simply saying that you led audits for a number of media clients. Tell the reader who those clients were, what you specifically did. And remember, no one cares what the rest of your team did. We only want to know what you specifically achieved. Now, it says concise on the screen, but you still need to make the CV as detailed as possible. Just leave out the waffle, okay? Don't worry about keeping it to 2 pages. Let's see what you've done, what products you've worked with, etc. So, if you've audited the front office of a bank, go into detail. Tell us what was involved, what products you covered, and how in-depth you went. And lastly, let's ensure that you check the CV. Is it accurate? Are the dates right? Have you checked the spelling? and get a friend to proofread it for you. Now I'm going to pass through to my colleague Adam to talk you through some of the opportunities available within banking and financial services.
Thanks there, Andy. So just an introduction, guys. My name's Adam Elwood. I'm a senior consultant on the investment management and banking team. So I guess what I'm going to talk about the next couple of minutes is what is financial services. So financial services can be split into banking and capital markets, retail banks, corporate banks, hedge funds, asset managers, private equity houses, and small wealth managers. Just to split the two different sides, so we differentiate these with buy side and sell side. Essentially, hedge funds, asset managers, and private equity houses are the buy side, and banking is the sell side. So why would you want to move into this sector? So there's a huge diversity of roles on offer in this organisation. The type of roles from newly qualified accountants do vary. There's a list of those on the right hand side which you can see, from a financial accountant to a management accountant to that fund side, or if you want to move down the regulatory reporting side. There are a lot of opportunities to move into. It is important to consider your long-term path. So right at the beginning, when we're telling you about your 5-year plan, think, where do you see yourself? This first role out of practice, it is important. However, it is also worth noting that first role you take, if it is a commercial position, you are more likely to be able to move within different sectors of the organisation. So typical salaries on offer. So for newly qualified, the market does pay the highest salaries in comparison to other areas of accountancy. Candidates are regularly placed into roles between a starting salary of 50,000 right up to 63,000. Bonuses can also be as high as 20%. A few of you are no doubt asking, how do I get to that 63,000? Well, to be honest, you do need to be the best in the market. What makes you the best? Ideally, you've trained from the Big Four, you've got first-time passes in your ACAs, you've got excellent academics, ideally a first or 2-1, and you're really specific and have a very wide knowledge pool of your area. But that's just the hard skills. Soft skills are equally important. You need to get your personality across at interview, you need to answer your questions well, you need to prove the business that they can see you within the organisation, speaking to other members of different areas without worrying about you. If you are going to go into a client-facing role, for example, a commercial business analyst, you need to be able to speak to different people who aren't from an accountancy background, and that's what people struggle with. So if you are looking for that higher salary, you need to pretend these people aren't accountants and put it in very simple language for them. I guess on background, on the technical side, you can see on the board, you need to have strong reporting standards, you need to have excellent report writing and have experience of that, and that be highlighted on your CV, and be prepared to be pushed on that and answer well in interview. I guess on another note, we are seeing a lot of our clients who want to or will offer sponsorship for people on Tier 2 visa. If you do have questions on this, please do ask your consultant or in questions about this later on. I guess progression routes is quite important. So there's one on the board at the minute. Product control for 3 years following your ACAs, you then move into an executive director product control position, and then you move into that VP position. Again, you've done financial projects, you move into legal entity control, and then forward looking, you move into that financial planning commercial role. Again, you move into that financial analyst position, and then you kind of get that senior position, bringing a bit more commerciality within the business, and then you finally be that business partner. You might have done your ACAs, you're a manager now, so you've stayed on for 3 more years. You then move directly to be a finance manager, then a financial controller, and then hopefully that dream role of being a financial director. Note, this is more likely to be a medium-sized organisation. You're then a management accountant for 3 years, you then go senior, and then again move into that financial control role, and finally AVP internal audit, senior internal audit, and then kind of head of group audit within financial markets. Moving into front office then. So a lot of our newly qualified accountants over the past couple of years have been wanting to move into this type of area. It's very popular, however, with that also does come competition. Many of you will believe it, that it is the best paying area. However, it isn't actually. It is one of the lowest paid areas in accountancy. As you can see from the slide, there's a few roles that you could potentially move into. However, I can't stress enough how competitive this specific market is. You are interviewing up against people who have been working in the front office role. So again, what makes you stand out is going to be your academics. You would need to have a first-class honours degree from a top-tier university. First-class ACAs is crucial, and again, be able to demonstrate a strong interest in the role, but more importantly, that you've got some transferable skills. If you do have questions on front office, please do ask us later on. I'm now going to hand you back to Josh.
Hi guys. Okay, so next up, I'm going to talk a bit more, next tip session on really how we shine an interview. So that's the good news. You've been invited for interview. Congrats. That was also the easy bit. Now comes the hard bit, the preparation. And there you were thinking you'd finished with all that study. Wrong. Let's break this, I guess, into three components. First up, the company. It seems obvious, but what do they actually do? Have they been in the news recently? Read through their annual report. Let's see how they're performing, but also identify what interests you about working for that particular business. Secondly, the role. What are the skills required? How does your experience time with this? And why do you think you'd actually be suitable? What are you going to bring to the table? Third up, competencies. Now this is always a tricky area to prepare for, but your recruiter can easily advise you on the types of questions you're going to be facing, and more importantly, how best to answer them. Make sure you do think about, and pre-prepare though, some of the more common ones. So things like, what are your weaknesses, or what are your areas for development? Always a favourite in there. STAR interview techniques. Hopefully some of you are familiar with that, but as with your CV, structure is vital. Assume the interviewer knows nothing about you or the situation you're involved with. So clarify, what was the situation? What was the task you're involved with? What were your actions? And again, as with the CV, we don't care about the rest of your team at all. What did you specifically do? And what was the result? More importantly, how do you know it was a positive or negative result? What is the evidence for this? Also, read up on the interviewer. What's their background? What does LinkedIn tell you? Or what comes up on their company website? Did you go to the same university? Or maybe you both share a love of rugby or F1. Whatever it is, it may well help you build that all-important rapport in the interview. I mentioned it earlier, but we're genuinely here to help you guys. We probably know the interviewer quite well. We know the way they conduct their interviews, all their typical questions, maybe even what footballer team they support. So just ask us, we're here to help. We'll help you prepare, and remember guys, each interview is going to be different, so don't assume you know exactly what's coming. I'm now going to pass you through to my colleague Phil, who will talk you through some of the opportunities available within commerce and industry.
Thanks, Andy. Hi, my name is Phil Ball. I am a team leader on the commerce and industry team. Initially, I'd like to talk you through some of the roles and routes available within industry, long-term career paths and salaries you could expect. So why commerce and industry? Well, C&I can offer a more relaxed office culture with a mixture of creative and technically minded people. They work a standard 9 to 5:30 with reduced summer hours and social events throughout the year. Businesses are often household names and products that you use on a daily basis, such as fashion retailers, publishers, broadcasters, and FMCGs. In commerce, we often recruit finance roles to support functions like marketing, sales, and IT. These positions have a much more operational view than the traditional financial accounting position. London is also a global hub and covers most non-US regions, such as EMEA and APAC. Next, I would like to cover the types of roles that we see within the commerce and industry space, as you can see on the board here on the right. Group accountants, as the name suggests, this role is found within an organisation that contains a group structure. The role itself is usually badged as a technical role, in such that it doesn't have any impact on the commercial performance of the business. What it actually brings is a number of divisions, business units or entities, and provides a single consolidated view. This role is usually found within larger businesses. Financial accountant. Using factual data based on prior events, this role focuses on producing a set of accounts that reflect the performance of the business to date. This is often the role that produces the numbers that the group accountant will consolidate. It's a balance sheet driven role. Management accountant. In polar opposite to the first two, this is a forward-looking role and finds itself finds its value in helping the business to plan and evaluate an opportunity or operational performance requirements. It is vital that the management accountant understands the key business drivers and can communicate in a language that non-finance folk will understand. Absolutely a forward-facing role that retains some traditional accounting in it. Business or financial analyst, they can be badged as either. The position takes the skill set gained from the management accountant and moves it into a more commercial standpoint. The analyst role is often project-based and involves providing key analysis to make decisions on. The role doesn't really have any month-end cycle, and it engages more with non-finance staff. And finally, internal auditor, not to be confused with external auditor. The role assesses the efficiencies of the company's operations, specifically in its control structure. This is a helicopter ride around a business offering huge variety. You could be reviewing processes and procedures in accounts payable one week and then assessing risks and controls in the buying, HR or marketing departments the next. Everything is covered from strategy and operations to governance and financial control. You should now be able to see the typical salaries on screen. I wanted to focus on the best backgrounds, and as you can see on the screen, there's a number of examples here. Big Four auditors tend to go into blue chips with a preference for first-time passes. Top 30 auditors tend to go on to small to medium-sized businesses. People that have perhaps trained within transaction services or corporate finance backgrounds would tend to go into business analyst roles, and people with European languages and a willingness to travel would then go on to the internal audit positions. This next slide should hopefully give you a brief insight into the structure of the finance function with reporting lines and obvious routes of progression available. As you can see, an auditor may move into a financial or group accounting position, someone from transaction services or corporate finance onto a business analyst role. Another route may be for an ACA auditor into a management accounting position, or alternatively onto internal audit. That's it from me, and I'll hand you back to Andy.
Thanks for that, Phil. Hopefully that's given you all a little bit of a flavour as to the kind of options available to you now. There's plenty to think about. So I guess the next bit's really up to you guys. Where do you want to go next? On the screen you'll see now a selection of the clients that we work for. It's by no means an exhaustive list, but it'll give you an idea of some of the major clients that we work with. Options from funds and investment management through to the banks, practice firms, but industry and commerce as well. Time for you to really start having a think about what roles you want available. As I said at the beginning, the consultants here at Morgan McKinley are here to help and to advise you through that next step of your career. On the screen next, I'll put a list of all of our contact details, so please take a note of those. While that's on the screen, we'll go through some of the questions that have been forwarded to us during the course of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, there's one I've got. Someone's asking, what about the next step for someone with an interest in tax rather than audit as a newly qualified ACA? An excellent question. I think first of all, it's really dependent upon the size of the firm that you're currently working in. I'd say that if you're within a Big Four or a top 20 firm, then tax and audit departments will be clearly defined from each other. So there might be an instance where you can transfer internally from one team to another. So I'd say there it's really important to network with your tax partner to make sure that that they know that you're up for a transfer. I think if you're working for a smaller firm and you've had exposure to tax work, then you really want to put yourself forward and concentrate and go down that line. I just think overall, generally speaking, speak up. I think if a tax partner realised that if a chance between you either leaving a firm or joining them on a tax side, providing your work's up to standard, then I think that you'd have a good chance of transferring across.
Perfect, thanks, Josh. I've got one here asking me around to elaborate a little bit more on the expected levels of travel within internal audit. It's changed over the last few years. I think companies these days seem to have got their travel elements fairly right in the job descriptions. Previously, they'd perhaps been a little bit ambitious in terms of what it really looked like. From a banking side, I guess it depends on which bank you look at, which area of the bank. Investment banking, typically the lowest, between 0 and 10%, whereas something like wealth or corporate banking could put you as high as 40%. That said, travels to fairly nice locations. There'll be the major financial cities, so it could be Frankfurt, New York, Hong Kong, Geneva, Singapore. For industry and commerce, could be from 0% through to 100%, so entirely up to you. 50% is probably the average, although when a business quotes 50, reality is they're over-exaggerating, and truth, it's probably more like 40%, so 2 weeks out of a month. Generally speaking, in my experience, if it's a UK-listed business, the travel's going to be global, out of the one internal audit team based here in London. But if it's a US business, travel's more likely to be the EMEA region, as they'll have an equivalent audit team based in the States and probably an equivalent one through in Asia Pacific. Thanks.
Another good question in here, Andy. What are the most commercial opportunities available, i.e. roles where you are closest to the business operations? Well, the most commercial roles available are the business analyst or finance analyst roles we discussed earlier. Essentially, these roles work with non-finance individuals and will provide the non-finance individuals information to base decisions on. So in order to perform a role like this, you actually need to get somebody on board that has a really broad understanding of the business, that can actually challenge the operational employees on what they're doing. They're the most difficult to move into, I think, from a first-time move perspective. So if you are a newly qualified ACA, then due to the increased level of commerciality required, it can be a little bit tougher. What they'll be looking for in interviews for you to be able to justify a good depth of experience gained within the sector. So, for example, if you're looking at a retailer, they would be looking for you to give really relevant retail exposure at audit. If you have any further questions on this, please do let us know.
Thanks, Phil. So I've got a question that's been sent in within the investment management space on what live vacancies do we have on at the minute. So currently, I mentioned this earlier, there is a high demand for that commercial accountant to move into the financial planning and analysis area within large asset managers. So a lot of our clients look at those technical ACA accountants. They've got experience of dealing with senior stakeholders from practice. They can present very well to senior stakeholders and push back and challenge when needs be. Again, softer skills are just important, so you do need to be able to articulate yourself well, demonstrate a confident personality at interview stage. Over the past few years, due to the introduction and regulations by the FCA and CoRep, we've seen a huge demand on corporate accountants. So some of our boutique investment firms are showing a specific interest to candidates with strong understanding of financial reporting standards, UK GAAP, US GAAP, IFRS, for those financial accounting or legal entity controller positions. I'm just going to pass you over to Andrew.
Yeah, perfect. Well, look, guys, we're coming towards the end of the half-hour slot there, so thank you for those questions. There are a couple that we haven't addressed yet, but we'll come back to you individually on that. Thank you all for your attention today. As you see on the screen, the contact details are still there, so please pick up the phone or drop us an email for any further questions. Thank you very much.